The morning sun rose over the broken colony. Smoke still climbed into the red sky from dozens of fires. Buildings that once stood tall now lay in pieces across the ground. New Haven was supposed to be a safe place, a new home for humans far from Earth. Now it looked like the end of the world. Dami crawled out from under a pile of metal sheets. She was 8 years old, small for her age, with dark hair covered in dust. Her clothes were torn and dirty. She had been hiding in the storage building when the aliens attacked. The explosions had been so loud that her ears still rang. She stood up slowly, looking around at what was left of her home. Everything was destroyed. The school where she learned to read was gone. The park where she played was now just a crater in the ground. And her house, the small blue house where her family lived, was nothing but broken walls and ashes. Dami touched her pocket and felt the photo there. It was bent and dirty, but she could still see their faces. Mom, Dad, and her little brother Jiho. They had been at the market when the attack came. She didn't know where they were now. She tried not to think about it. Her stomach hurt from hunger. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. She walked carefully through the rubble, looking for anything useful. Broken glass crunched under her feet. She found the old market building, or what was left of it. Half the roof had fallen in. Inside, she searched through the mess. Most of the food was burned or crushed. But under a fallen shelf, she found 3 protein bars still in their packages. She grabbed them quickly and stuffed them in her pocket. Then she found a bottle of water that wasn't broken. She drank half of it right away. That's when she heard the voices. They weren't human voices. They made clicking and hissing sounds that made her skin feel cold. Dami ducked behind a counter and peeked through a crack in the wall. 4 aliens walked down the street. They were tall, much taller than any adult human. Their skin looked like dark green leather with scales. They had long arms and legs, and they moved in a way that reminded Dami of lizards. Each one carried a large weapon that glowed with blue light. These were the Vrex. Dami had seen pictures of them on the news before. They were warriors who traveled from planet to planet, taking what they wanted. Now they had come to New Haven. One of the Vrex stopped and tilted its head. It made a clicking sound. The others stopped too. Dami held her breath and tried to stay very still. Her heart beat so hard she thought they might hear it. The lead Vrex pointed at the market building. It had seen something. Maybe her footprints in the dust. Maybe the bottle she had moved. The 4 aliens started walking toward her hiding spot. Dami didn't think. She just ran. She burst out through a hole in the back wall and ran as fast as she could. Behind her, she heard the Vrex making loud screeching sounds. They were chasing her. She ran past broken cars and fallen trees. Her legs burned and her lungs hurt, but she kept running. She could hear the aliens behind her, their heavy feet hitting the ground. They were getting closer. Dami ran toward the old zoo. It had been one of her favorite places before the attack. Now the gates were bent and hanging open. She ran inside, past the empty cages and broken fences. Most of the animals had escaped or died in the attack. She heard a strange buzzing sound behind her. One of the Vrex had fired its weapon. A bolt of blue energy flew past her head and hit a wall, making a hole as big as her fist. They were trying to kill her. Dami's foot caught on a piece of broken fence. She fell hard, scraping her hands and knees on the concrete. She tried to get up, but her ankle hurt too much. She looked back and saw the 4 Vrex walking toward her slowly now. They knew she couldn't run anymore. The lead Vrex made a hissing sound that might have been laughter. It raised its weapon and pointed it at her. Dami pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. She closed her eyes tight and waited, but the shot never came. Instead, she heard a low growling sound. It was deep and angry, like rolling thunder. Dami opened her eyes and saw something moving in the shadows between the broken cages. The Vrex saw it too. They turned their weapons toward the sound. The growling got louder. Then she stepped into the light. It was a honey badger. Dami recognized her from the school trips to the zoo. The teachers had called her Honey and told the children to never get too close to the fence. Honey badgers were dangerous, they said. They were afraid of nothing. Honey was about 3 feet long with gray and black fur. She had small ears and a white stripe on her back. Her claws were long and sharp. But what Dami noticed most were her eyes. They were dark and fierce and completely unafraid. The badger walked slowly between Dami and the Vrex. She didn't run or hide. She just stood there staring at the 4 aliens who were each 10 times her size. The lead Vrex made a clicking sound. It seemed confused. One of the other aliens made a hissing sound that might have been a question. They had fought many creatures on many worlds, but they had never seen anything like this small Earth animal, high above the planet. In a ship floating in space, Commander Hayek watched through the cameras in his soldiers' helmets. He was the leader of the Vrex attack force. He looked at the small furry creature on his screen and made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. He sent a message to his soldiers. The words appeared on their helmet displays. The message was simple: kill the animal. Take the child. The lead Vrex raised its weapon at Honey. The barrel glowed brighter as it charged up. The alien made that hissing laugh sound again. It thought this would be easy. It thought the little animal would run away. It was wrong. Honey's growl became a snarl. She lowered her head and her muscles tensed. Every part of her body said the same thing. Come closer and find out what happens. The Vrex fired. The blue energy bolt shot toward the badger, but Honey was already moving. She dodged to the side so fast she was just a blur. The shot hit the ground where she had been standing, leaving a smoking hole. And then, while the Vrex was still surprised that it had missed, Honey charged. She ran straight at the four-armed aliens, her claws digging into the ground with every step. Her teeth were bared and her eyes were locked on her target. The Vrex tried to fire again, but the Honey badger was too fast, too close, and far too angry. Dami watched with wide eyes as the small creature reached the first alien. What happened next would change everything. Not just for her, not just for New Haven, but for every human colony in the galaxy, because the Vrex were about to learn an important lesson. They were about to learn what happens when you threaten a human child in front of Earth's most fearless animal. Honey hit the first Vrex soldier like a furry missile. She leaped up and clamped her jaws around the alien's leg, right where the armor had a joint. Her teeth sank deep into the scaly flesh beneath. The Vrex screamed. It was a horrible sound, high and piercing. The alien tried to shake her off, swinging its leg wildly, but Honey held on tight. Her jaw muscles were incredibly strong. Once a Honey badger bit down, it didn't let go. The other three Vrex raised their weapons to shoot, but they hesitated. If they fired, they might hit their comrade. The injured Vrex stumbled backward, still trying to get the badger off its leg. It dropped its weapon and tried to grab Honey with its clawed hands. That was a mistake. The moment the Vrex's hands got close, Honey released its leg and twisted like a snake. She climbed up the alien's body, her claws tearing through the armor's weak spots. The Vrex tried to grab her again, but she was too fast and too angry. Honey reached the alien's throat. She bit down hard. The Vrex's screaming stopped. It fell to the ground, twitching and then still. The whole thing took less than 30 seconds. High above in his ship, Commander Hayek stared at his screen. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. One of his trained soldiers, wearing battle armor and carrying advanced weapons, had been killed by a small animal. It was impossible. It was embarrassing. He quickly checked the ship's computer for information about honey badgers. The file said they were small carnivores from Earth, not dangerous to armed soldiers. No special abilities. The file was clearly wrong. Hyuk sent new orders to his remaining soldiers. Use explosive rounds. Keep your distance. Kill the creature immediately. The three remaining Vrex backed away from Honey. They changed their weapons to a more powerful setting. The blue glow turned red. These rounds would explode on impact, strong enough to blow apart a small vehicle. But Honey was already moving. She jumped behind a pile of broken concrete just as the first explosive round hit, where she had been standing. The explosion was huge, throwing chunks of debris everywhere. Dami covered her head with her arms as rocks and dust rained down around her. When she looked up, she couldn't see Honey anymore. For a terrible moment, she thought the badger was dead. Then she saw movement behind the Vrex. Honey had circled around them, using the broken zoo buildings as cover. The aliens were looking at where the explosion had happened. They didn't see her coming from behind. Honey picked the closest Vrex. She charged silently, staying low to the ground. At the last second, the alien heard her and started to turn. Too late. Honey leaped up and grabbed its weapon arm. Her teeth found the joint at the elbow. She bit down with all her strength. There was a crunching sound. The Vrex dropped its weapon and screamed. Its arm bent at an angle that arms should never bend. The other two Vrex spun around and fired. Explosive rounds hit all around Honey and the injured alien. One blast caught Honey's shoulder, singing her fur and throwing her sideways. But she rolled with the impact and kept moving. The injured Vrex tried to run away holding its ruined arm. It didn't get far. Honey chased it down and brought it to the ground. She finished it quickly and efficiently, the way predators had done for millions of years. 2 down, 2 to go. The remaining Vrex soldiers were scared now. Dami could see it in the way they moved, in how they kept looking around nervously. They had come to this planet thinking they were the predators. Now they were the prey. One of them did something smart. It activated a device on its belt. A hologram appeared in the air, showing a message in the Vrex language. It was calling for backup. But backup would take time to arrive, and time was something these Vrex didn't have. Honey came at them from a different angle this time. She used a broken wall as a ramp and jumped high into the air. For a moment she was flying, her claws spread wide and her teeth bared. She landed on the back of the third Vrex. Her claws dug into the gaps in its armor. The alien tried to reach back to grab her, but its arms couldn't bend that way. It spun in circles, trying to throw her off. Honey rode the spinning alien like she was playing a game. Then she saw what she was looking for. There was a cable on the back of the Vrex's neck, connecting its helmet to its armor. She bit through it. The Vrex's helmet went dark. It couldn't see anymore. It stumbled forward, blind and confused, and crashed into a broken wall. It didn't get up. The last Vrex was alone now. It looked at its 3 dead companions. It looked at the small, blood-stained animal standing between the bodies. It made a decision. It ran, but Honey was faster. She caught up to the fleeing Vrex in seconds. She jumped and grabbed its leg, pulling it down. The alien fell hard and its weapon skittered across the ground. The Vrex pulled out a knife, a long blade that glowed with heat. It slashed at Honey. The blade cut across her side, leaving a long burn. Honey snarled in pain but didn't back away. The Vrex slashed again. This time Honey dodged and came in from the side. She grabbed the alien's wrist and bit down. The knife fell from its hand. Then she went for the throat. It was over. Honey stood among the 4 dead Vrex soldiers, breathing heavily. Blood dripped from several wounds on her body. Her fur was singed in places from the explosions and the knife, but she was alive, and she had won. She turned and looked at Dami. The girl was still sitting on the ground where she had fallen, her eyes wide with shock. For a long moment they just stared at each other. Then Honey limped over to where Dami sat. The badger was moving more slowly now. The fight and the injuries were catching up to her. She stopped a few feet away from the girl and sat down. Dami remembered what her teacher had said. Never get close to a honey badger. They're dangerous. They might attack. But this honey badger had just saved her life. This honey badger had fought 4 armed aliens to protect her. Slowly, very slowly, Dami reached out her hand. Honey watched her with those dark, fierce eyes. The badger leaned forward and sniffed Dami's fingers. Her nose was wet and cold. Then Honey lay down on the ground next to Dami, close enough that the girl could feel the badger's warmth. Close enough to protect her if more danger came. Dami carefully touched Honey's head. The fur was rough and wiry. Honey didn't pull away. The girl's hand moved down to the badger's neck, feeling the strong muscles beneath the fur. Above them, in his ship, Commander Hyuk watched through the dead soldiers' cameras. The last images they had sent showed the creature that had killed them. A small mammal that weighed maybe 30 pounds. It had destroyed his patrol in less than 5 minutes. Hyuk's hands formed fists. His pride was hurt. His reputation was damaged. 4 of his soldiers were dead, killed by an animal. The other Vrex commanders would mock him if they found out. He made a decision. He would send more soldiers, better soldiers, and he would send machines. He would crush this creature and the human child. He would show everyone that the Vrex were superior. Hyuk began giving orders. His officers hurried to obey. Soon, 2 dropships would launch from the main ship. They would carry hunter-killer mechs, massive war machines designed to destroy fortified positions. Surely those would be enough. Down on the planet, Dami heard a new sound. It was a deep rumbling like thunder, but steady and growing louder. She looked up at the sky and saw 2 dark shapes descending through the clouds. Dropships. Coming for them. Honey heard it too. She stood up, ignoring her injuries. Her body tensed and her lips pulled back in a snarl. Whatever was coming, she would face it. She had protected the small human once. She would do it again, because that's what honey badgers did. They never gave up. They never backed down. They never ran away. No matter how big the enemy was, no matter how dangerous the situation, they fought. The dropships got closer, their engines roaring. Dami could see their weapons now, see the mechanical shapes moving inside them. Fear filled her chest, but Honey stood between her and the sky, ready for whatever came next. The dropships landed with a heavy thud that shook the ground. Their doors opened with a hiss of steam. What came out made Dami's heart sink. They were machines, but they looked like metal monsters. Each one stood 12 feet tall on 2 legs. They had arms with huge guns attached. Their heads were covered in sensors that glowed red. These were hunter-killer mechs built for war. The mechs started walking toward them. Each step was loud and heavy. Their guns made a whirring sound as they powered up. These machines could destroy a building. What chance did one small badger have? Dami felt Honey tense beside her. The badger was hurt and tired from the last fight. But she didn't run. She stood her ground, ready to face machines 10 times her size. Then Dami remembered something. During school, they had practiced emergency drills. The teachers had shown them tunnels under the zoo, passages that led to different parts of the colony. Those tunnels might still be there. She looked around frantically. There. Near the old reptile house, she could see a metal door half buried in rubble. That was one of the tunnel entrances. Dami whispered to Honey. She knew the badger probably couldn't understand her words, but maybe she would understand the tone. The girl pointed at the door. Honey looked where she pointed. The badger's eyes met hers for a moment. Then, to Dami's surprise, Honey moved toward the door. Maybe the badger understood. Maybe she just trusted the human child. Either way, they moved together. The mech saw them moving. Their guns tracked the motion. One of them fired a burst of bullets that tore up the ground behind them. Dami ran faster, her hurt ankle screaming in pain. They reached the door. It was locked, but the frame was damaged from the attack. Dami pulled with all her strength. The door bent but didn't open. Honey added her claws, digging at the metal. Together, they pulled the door open enough to squeeze through. They tumbled down a flight of stairs into darkness. Behind them, they heard the heavy footsteps of the mechs. The machines were trying to follow, but the doorway was too small for them. There was a loud bang, then another. The mechs were trying to break through the wall to get to them. Dami felt along the wall in the dark. Her fingers found a switch. She pushed it, not sure if the power would still work. To her relief, dim emergency lights flickered on along the tunnel ceiling. The tunnel stretched ahead of them, concrete walls covered in pipes and cables. It was narrow, maybe 6 feet wide. Perfect for a child and a badger. Too small for a mech. Another explosion shook the tunnel. Dust fell from the ceiling. The mechs were using explosives to break through. They had to keep moving. As they walked through the tunnel, Dami noticed something. There were supply boxes along the walls, emergency equipment from when the colony was first built. She opened one and found what she was looking for, a first aid kit. She also found water bottles and food bars. She drank some water and ate a little, then offered some to Honey. The badger sniffed the food and ate a bit. Then Dami opened the first aid kit. Inside was antiseptic foam and bandages. Dami had learned basic first aid in school. She knew how to treat cuts and burns. She looked at Honey's wounds and felt scared. The badger was hurt badly, but she had to try. She broke open a glow stick for light and knelt beside Honey. The badger watched her with those dark eyes. Dami reached out slowly and touched the fur near one of the wounds. Honey tensed but didn't pull away. She seemed to understand that Dami was trying to help. The girl worked carefully, spraying antiseptic foam on the burns and cuts. Honey flinched but stayed still. They stayed there in the tunnel for a while, Dami treating Honey's wounds by the light of the glow stick. Outside, they could hear the mechs moving around, searching for them. Then Dami heard a new sound. It was faint but distinct, a voice. A human voice. It was coming from her pocket. She reached in and pulled out a small device. It was her emergency beacon, the one every colonist carried. It was beeping and showing a message on its tiny screen. The message said, "This is Captain Bora. If anyone can hear this, respond. We are survivors. We can help." Dami's hands shook as she pressed the button to respond. She whispered into the device, afraid the mechs might hear her. She said her name. She said she was 8 years old. She said she was scared. The response came quickly. The voice was strong and calm. It belonged to a woman named Bora, a captain in the colony's defense force. She said she had been tracking the Vrek signals. She knew about the mechs, and she had a plan. Bora explained that she and her team had one anti-armor mine left. It was powerful enough to damage a mech, but they needed to lure one of the mechs to a specific location. She told Dami exactly where to go. Dami felt scared. Bora was asking her to be bait, to lead a killing machine to a trap. But what choice did they have? If they stayed hidden, the mechs would eventually find them. At least this way they had a chance. She looked at Honey. The badger had finished resting. Her wounds were treated. She looked tired but ready. Somehow the badger seemed to know what they had to do. Dami told Bora they would do it. The captain gave her instructions. Follow the tunnel to the old market square. There was an exit there. Come out in the open. Make sure the mech sees you. Then run to the intersection near the fountain. That's where they would set the trap. It sounded simple. It sounded terrifying. They moved through the tunnels, following the signs on the walls. Dami's heart beat faster with every step. Behind them, they could hear the mechs still searching, their heavy footsteps echoing through the ruins above. They reached the exit to the market square. Dami pushed open the door and sunlight streamed in. The square was a mess of broken buildings and burnt vehicles. And in the middle of it, one of the mechs was scanning the area. Dami took a deep breath. This was it. She looked at Honey. The badger looked back at her. Then, as if they had planned it, Honey walked out into the square first. The mech's sensors locked onto the movement immediately. Its head turned toward Honey. The guns on its arms started to spin up, preparing to fire. Honey didn't run away. Instead, she did something that made Dami's breath catch. The badger snarled at the giant machine. She was challenging it, daring it to chase her. The mech's guns fired. Bullets tore up the ground around Honey, but the badger was already running, zigzagging across the square. The mech followed, its heavy feet crushing rubble with each step. Dami watched from the doorway, her hands over her mouth. Honey was leading the mech exactly where they needed it to go. The badger ran through narrow gaps between buildings, forcing the mech to follow a specific path. Bullets chased Honey across the square. Some came so close that Dami could see dirt spraying up next to the badger. But Honey kept running, kept dodging, kept leading the machine forward. They reached the intersection. The broken fountain was right there, just like Bora had said. Honey ran across a specific spot and kept going. The mech followed, its metal feet hitting the ground hard. There was a huge explosion. The mine detonated right under the mech's leg. The blast was so powerful it threw Dami backward even though she was far away. Fire and smoke filled the air. Metal pieces flew in every direction. When the smoke cleared, Dami saw the mech. It was on its side, one leg completely destroyed. Sparks flew from its damaged parts. It was trying to get up but couldn't. Its guns were still working, though, firing blindly in all directions. Then Honey appeared. The badger had survived the explosion somehow. She ran toward the fallen mech. Moving fast despite her injuries, she found what she was looking for, a thick cable on the mech's damaged leg. She bit down on it and pulled. The cable tore free. Green liquid started spraying out. It was coolant, the fluid that kept the mech's systems from overheating. Without it, the machine would shut down. The mech's movements got slower. Its guns stopped firing. Smoke poured from its body. Then it went completely still. Two people ran out from behind a building. One was a woman with short hair and a determined face. Captain Bora. The other was a man carrying tools and weapons. His name was Taiyang, and he had been the one to set the mine. They reached Dami and looked at her in amazement. Then they looked at Honey, who was sitting near the destroyed mech, calmly licking her paws clean. Bora laughed. It was a tired, slightly crazy sound. She asked Dami if the badger was for hire, but before Dami could answer, they heard a new sound, a roar of engines. The second mech had found them, and this time it wasn't taking any chances. It fired a rocket. The building next to them exploded. The ground shook. The roof started to collapse. Everyone ran. They ran through the collapsing building, debris falling all around them. Bora led the way with Taiyang right behind her. Dami followed, and Honey brought up the rear. The second mech was right behind them, its rockets and bullets destroying everything in its path. They dove through a doorway just as another rocket hit. The explosion threw them forward. Dami hit the ground hard and rolled. Her ears were ringing and everything hurt. Bora pulled her up. They kept running, going deeper into the tunnel system. The mech tried to follow but was too big. Instead, it started destroying the tunnels, making the ceiling collapse to trap them or crush them. Taiyang shouted over the noise. He knew where they could go. The old power plant. It was connected to these tunnels and might still have working defenses. Maybe they could use those against the mech. Bora nodded. They had no other choice. They followed Taeyang through a series of turns, going deeper underground. Behind them, they could hear the mech still pursuing, still destroying. They reached the power plant after 20 minutes of running. It was a huge space filled with machines and pipes. Emergency lights cast strange shadows everywhere. In the center was the main reactor, a massive cylinder covered in warning signs. Taeyang ran to a control panel and started working. His fingers flew over the keys. He was trying to activate the plant's automated defense turrets. They were designed to protect the plant from accidents and intruders. Bora set up defensive positions. She had a rifle and gave another to a man who had been hiding in the plant. His name was Gunwoo, and he had worked here before the attack. There were 3 other survivors with him. Dami stayed close to Honey. The Badger was panting heavily. The running had been hard on her injured body. Dami found another first aid kit and started treating Honey's wounds again. The Badger let her, too tired to object. Then the mech arrived. It tore through the entrance, making the opening bigger so it could fit. Its guns swept across the room, searching for targets. Taeyang pressed a button. The defense turrets activated. They popped out of the walls and ceiling and started firing at the mech. The bullets sparked against its armor but didn't do much damage. The mech returned fire, destroying 2 turrets immediately, but the turrets bought them time. Time for Taeyang to implement the second part of their plan. He explained quickly. They could trigger a reactor meltdown. It would take 5 minutes, but when it happened, the explosion would be massive, big enough to destroy everything in the plant and for a kilometer around it. But there were escape tunnels that led far enough away to be safe. Bora looked at the others. They all nodded. It was their only chance. Taeyang started the sequence. Alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed. A computerized voice announced, "Reactor meltdown initiated. 5 minutes to critical mass." The mech seemed to understand the danger. It pushed forward more aggressively, destroying the remaining turrets. Bora and the others fired their rifles, trying to slow it down. That's when they heard a new sound. Heavy footsteps. More than one set. Commander Hyuk had arrived with reinforcements. The commander walked into the plant wearing powered armor. It was different from the regular soldiers' armor. This was bigger, stronger, covered in weapons. Behind him came 6 elite Vrex soldiers, the best fighters the aliens had. Hyuk's voice boomed through his armor's speakers. He spoke in broken human language. He said they had fought well, but now it was over. Surrender the child, and they could live as slaves. Refuse, and they would all die. Bora's answer was a bullet. It hit Hyuk's helmet visor, cracking it. The commander roared in anger. He ordered his soldiers to attack. A fierce battle erupted. The humans used the plant's equipment as cover and weapons. Taeyang triggered a crane to drop a load of hot metal slag on 2 Vrex soldiers. They went down screaming. Gunwoo, the plant worker, opened a steam valve. Superheated steam blasted another Vrex, melting through its armor. The alien fell, badly burned. But the Vrex were tough and well-trained. They pushed forward using their superior weapons. One by one, the human defenders fell. First Gunwoo, then another survivor, then another. The countdown continued. 3 minutes to meltdown. 3 Vrex soldiers broke through the defenses. They headed straight for the control room where Dami was hiding. They had orders to capture the child. The door burst open. The 3 aliens entered, weapons ready. They saw Dami cowering in the corner. They started toward her. Honey hit them like a furry missile. The Badger had been resting, recovering her strength. Now she exploded into action. She went for the first Vrex's legs, bringing it down hard. Before the alien could react, she had torn out its throat. The second Vrex fired at her. The plasma bolt hit Honey in the side, burning through fur and flesh. The Badger snarled in pain but didn't stop. She leaped at the shooter, claws extended. She tore at the alien's face, ripping away its breathing apparatus. It fell, choking. The third Vrex tried to grab her. Big mistake. Honey twisted in its grip and bit its hand so hard she broke bones. The alien dropped her, and she finished it quickly. 3 Vrex soldiers dead in less than a minute. But the fight had cost Honey. She collapsed on the floor, bleeding from the plasma wound. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Dami crawled to her. She pressed her hands against Honey's wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Tears ran down her face. The badger had saved her again. But this time the wound was too serious. 2 minutes to meltdown. Outside the control room, Bora was fighting desperately. She had taken down 2 more Vreks but was running out of ammunition. Taeyang was injured, bleeding from a wound in his shoulder. Commander Hyuk pushed through the defenses. His armor was damaged but still functional. He saw the door to the control room. He knew the child was in there. Bora tried to stop him, but he swatted her aside like she was nothing. The woman hit a wall hard and didn't get up. Taeyang threw himself at the commander but was knocked away easily. Hyuk walked to the control room door. He tore it off its hinges and threw it aside. He saw Dami inside, holding the injured badger. 1 minute to meltdown. The commander raised his arm cannon. He had failed to capture the child, but he could still kill her. That would have to be victory enough. He aimed carefully. Honey's eyes opened. The badger saw the threat. She saw the weapon pointed at Dami. And something inside her, something primal and unstoppable, pushed her body to move one more time. She lunged at Hyuk with the last of her strength. Her jaws locked onto his armored leg. Her claws dug into the servo joints. The commander tried to shake her off but couldn't. She held on with everything she had. Hyuk pointed his cannon at the badger, but Honey was too close, in a spot where he couldn't aim. He tried to grab her with his other hand. She bit that too, her teeth finding gaps in the armor. 30 seconds to meltdown. Bora's voice came through the radio, weak but urgent. She was telling everyone to run. Get to the escape tunnel, now. Taeyang pulled himself up and stumbled toward the control room. He grabbed Dami and started dragging her toward the exit. The girl screamed for Honey. She reached back, trying to grab the badger. But Honey wouldn't let go of Hyuk. She couldn't. If she released him, he would kill them all. So she held on, her teeth locked in his armor, her claws dug deep. Dami screamed Honey's name as Taeyang pulled her into the tunnel. The last thing she saw was the badger still fighting, still holding the commander, still protecting her even as the lights flashed red and the alarm reached its final warning. 10 seconds. Taeyang slammed the tunnel door shut. He and Dami ran. Behind them, they heard Bora and the 2 remaining survivors. Everyone was running as fast as they could. 5 seconds. They reached the far exit, 3 kilometers from the plant. They burst out into daylight and kept running. 0. The power plant exploded. The blast was so powerful it looked like a small sun had appeared on the ground. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The shockwave knocked them all down, even though they were far away. Dami lay on the ground, ears ringing, crying. She had lost her family in the first attack. Now she had lost Honey too, the brave badger who had protected her, the friend who had asked for nothing and given everything. Bora put her arm around the girl. Taeyang sat down heavily, exhausted and wounded. They all stared at the massive cloud of smoke and fire rising from where the power plant had been. Nothing could have survived that explosion. Nothing. 3 hours passed. The survivors had moved to a safer location, away from the radiation and destruction. They found shelter in an old warehouse that was still standing. Everyone was exhausted, hurt, and in shock. Dami sat in a corner, hugging her knees. She hadn't spoken since the explosion. Her eyes were red from crying. She kept thinking about Honey, the brave badger who had saved her life over and over, who had fought aliens and machines, who had held on to Commander Hyuk so that Dami could escape. Bora was treating wounds. Taeyang was trying to get the radio working, so they could call for help. The other 2 survivors, whose names were Minho and Sora, were standing guard. Then Minho saw something. He was watching the debris field through broken binoculars. He saw movement in the distance. Something was coming toward them through the ruins. Everyone grabbed weapons. They thought it might be more Vreks. But as the shape got closer, Minho lowered his rifle. His mouth opened in shock. It was Honey. The badger was moving slowly, limping on 3 legs. Her fur was burned in places. Blood covered her body. One ear was torn. She looked like she had been through a war. Because she had, but she was alive. Dummy saw her and screamed. It was a scream of joy and disbelief. The girl ran toward the badger, ignoring everyone telling her to be careful. She reached Honey and fell to her knees. Honey was carrying something in her mouth. It was Commander Hayek's helmet. Empty. The commander himself was gone, nothing left but pieces of his armor scattered across the wasteland. The badger dropped the helmet and collapsed. Tommy caught her, holding the heavy animal in her small arms. She was crying again, but this time from happiness. Honey's eyes looked at her, tired but still fierce. Still alive? Bora rushed over with the medical supplies. She examined Honey's wounds while Dami held the badger's head. The captain shook her head in amazement. She didn't know how Honey had survived the explosion. Maybe she had found shelter at the last second. Maybe honey badgers were just too tough to kill. Either way, it was a miracle. They treated Honey's wounds as best they could. The badger let them work, too tired to do anything else. When they were done, Honey curled up next to Dami and went to sleep. The girl stayed with her, one hand resting on the badger's side, feeling her breathe. Above the planet, the Rex fleet was in confusion. Commander Hyuk was dead. The signal from his armor had stopped. The mechs were destroyed. An entire strike force had been wiped out. And by what? A handful of humans and one small animal. The Vrex officers argued about what to do. Some wanted to glass the entire planet from orbit, destroy everything. Others said they should retreat. Without their commander, they had no clear orders. And they were afraid of what else might be down there. While they argued, something appeared on their sensors. Human ships, a whole battle group. They had finally responded to New Haven's distress signal, and they were ready for a fight. The Vrex fleet decided to retreat. They jumped to hyperspace, leaving the system. They told themselves they were being tactical, but really they were running away. 3 days later, human soldiers landed at New Haven. They found the survivors and took them to safety. Doctors examined everyone, including Honey. The vets who looked at the badger couldn't believe she was alive. Her injuries should have killed her several times over. But honey badgers were known for being tough. This one was tougher than most. The story of what happened spread quickly. The Vrex had left behind their helmet cameras. The humans recovered them and saw everything. They saw Honey fighting the patrol. They saw her take down the mech. They saw her final battle with Commander Hyuk. The videos went everywhere. Every human colony, every ship, every station. People watched in amazement as a 30-pound badger fought aliens and machines. They watched her protect a scared little girl. They watched her never give up, never back down, never stop fighting. Honey became famous across human space. But more than that, she became a symbol. She showed everyone what humans loved about Earth's animals. Their courage, their loyalty, their refusal to quit. The Galactic Council, a group that included many different alien species, demanded an explanation from the Vrex. Why had they attacked a peaceful human colony? The Vrex had no good answer. They were forced to pay compensation and promised never to attack humans again. Other alien species started researching Earth animals with new respect. They had thought they understood humans, but they had missed something important. Humans didn't just live alongside other species. They formed bonds with them. They made friends with creatures from wolves to whales, and those creatures would fight for humans just as hard as humans fought for them. A Vrex ambassador nervously asked human diplomats how many creatures like honey badgers Earth had. The humans smiled and gave him a list. Wolverines, cassowaries, Cape buffalo, hippos, crocodiles, Komodo dragons. The list went on and on. The ambassador went pale. His species had picked a fight with the wrong planet. New Haven was rebuilt over the following year. The colony grew larger than before. More people came, wanting to live in the place where a little girl and a brave badger had stood against an alien invasion. A memorial was built in the center of the new town. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the attack. Dami's family was on that list. She visited it often, bringing flowers, telling them about her life. Captain Bora adopted Dami. The girl had lost her family, and Bora had lost hers years before. They helped each other heal, and Honey stayed with them. The badger had her own room in their house with a soft bed and all the food she wanted. Dami still had nightmares sometimes. She would wake up scared, remembering the attack. But then she would hear Honey moving in the next room. The sound of the badger's breathing. and she would feel safe again. 1 year after the attack, something important happened at the Galactic Council. The humans were applying to become full members. But some species objected. They said humans were too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous. A Rex representative stood up. He said humans had survived only through luck, that they were weak without their technology. The human ambassador stood up. She was a woman named Yunji, and she had been a soldier once. She played a video on the council's big screen. It showed Honey fighting. It showed the Badger protecting Dami. It showed her taking down soldiers and mechs and finally Commander Hayuk himself. Then the video showed something else. It showed Honey sleeping peacefully next to Dami. It showed the girl petting the Badger gently. It showed trust and friendship. Ambassador Yunji spoke. She said this is what humans bring to the galaxy, the ability to form bonds with other species, to turn the fiercest predators into loyal friends, to preserve and protect life, even life that could kill us. She said humans domesticated wolves into dogs thousands of years ago. They befriended cats, horses, elephants, and birds. They took species that were endangered and saved them. They moved animals across the stars to give them new homes. And when someone threatens a human child, even the smallest and toughest of Earth's creatures will fight to protect them. Because that's what Earth teaches: loyalty, courage, protection of the weak. These are human values, and they're shared with every species that lives alongside humans. The council chamber was silent. Then one species started clapping. Then another. Soon, everyone was showing approval in their own way, clapping, clicking, humming, or stamping feet. The vote was called. Humanity was accepted as a full member of the Galactic Council. There was only one condition. They had to provide detailed information about all Earth species that could be dangerous, for safety purposes. The galaxy wanted to know what else humans had brought with them from their wild planet. 10 years passed. Dami grew up. She was 18 now, tall and strong. She joined the Colonial Defense Forces, wanting to protect others the way she had been protected. She was good at her job. People said she was fearless. She said she learned from the best. Honey lived with Bora. The Badger was old now, moving slowly, sleeping more. But she was comfortable and loved. Dami visited whenever she could, bringing treats and spending hours sitting with her old friend. In New Haven Central Square there was a statue. It showed a small girl standing beside a honey badger, both facing forward, both looking brave. The inscription read, "In memory of all who defended New Haven, from the smallest guardian to the bravest hearts. We endure." Children would visit the statue and ask their parents about it. The parents would tell them the story of Dami and Honey, how a scared girl and a fierce badger had stood against an alien army and won, how they had shown the galaxy what humans and Earth's animals could do together. Honey badgers were no longer kept in zoos. Instead, they were trained as companions for soldiers and colonists. They were still tough and fearless, but they were also loyal and protective. They saved many lives over the years, just like Honey had saved Dami. The galaxy learned its lesson. Never underestimate humans, and never ever threaten a human child. Because humans don't face danger alone. They have friends from Earth, friends with claws and teeth, friends who never learned the meaning of the word quit. One day, an alien tourist visited the rebuilt zoo at New Haven. She was tall and thin, with blue skin and big eyes. She read the plaque about Honey's story. She asked a young guide if honey badgers were really as dangerous as the legend said.